The other day, I was sitting in my small kitchen, calculating my pension against this month's bills. Electricity costs had gone up, the insurance was still unpaid, and in the end, there was barely anything left for dining out or traveling. I thought to myself, is retirement really just about burying my head in worries like this? Then I came across the story of an American couple. They gave up everything and moved to live on a Caribbean island. In the morning, they drank coffee by the beach. In the afternoon, they went to the market and bought fresh fish for just a few dollars. And in the evening, they enjoyed lively street music. All of that cost only half of what I have to pay here each month. Everyday life felt like a vacation. Hearing that, I felt both envious and curious, and so I started to dig deeper. Turns out, there are many places not far from the US where you can live an entire month on a modest pension and still have enough left to enjoy life. Honestly, if no one shared this, you might never know about these retirement paradises. What's fascinating is that these places are not some extravagant dream, but very real, where thousands of Americans and Canadians have already moved to retire. And if you've never heard of these names before, you might just be missing out on the chance to live a freer, much happier retirement. Let's explore together 5 islands that are becoming the little secrets of smart retirees, where you can turn retirement into an endless vacation. Dream it. Pack it. Go. 5. Penang, Malaysia. A one-way ticket to a relaxed retirement for Americans. Picture yourself walking into Georgetown, the cultural heart of Penang. The old streets, recognized by UNESCO, look like an open-air museum, their walls bursting with vibrant murals, while the air is filled with the irresistible aroma of street vendors selling fried noodles, curry, and steamed buns. It all blends into a symphony of flavors and colors, as if New York, Havana, and Hollywood decided to meet up on a tropical island. But the biggest surprise isn't the scenery, it's the cost. In the US, $2,000 a month barely covers decent rent, and a few trips to Whole Foods will wipe out the rest. But in Penang, with $200 to $2,000 a month, you live like a VIP. A nice apartment for only $400–500, street food cheaper than a McDonald's meal. In the US, that amount might only cover pet insurance for your dog, but here, it buys you an entire life full of color. Malaysia is famous for its MM2H, Malaysia My Second Home, program. However, requirements can change depending on the period. For retirees, it usually means proving a minimum monthly income of around $2,500–$3,500 or showing substantial savings in the bank. The visa is valid for 5 to 10 years, renewable, and allows you to buy property and bring your family. Malaysia also has the Silver Hair program, designed specifically for those over 50, which is slightly easier compared to MM2H. And when it comes to retirement, healthcare is always the top concern. If in the US you often live in fear of hospital bills longer than a Stephen King novel, in Penang you'll find doctors trained in the UK, Australia, and the US, but at prices so affordable that many people don't even bother with insurance. They just pay cash and stay worry-free. A full checkup costs about the same as a New York steak dinner, yet it gives you complete peace of mind. And here's the good news. You won't even need Google Translate, because doctors, nurses, and even receptionists speak fluent English. That's the colonial legacy that makes Americans like you feel completely at home. The interesting thing is, you'll never feel lonely. Penang has a large expat community from the US, Canada, Europe, and Australia, and they're anything but closed off. There are clubs, social groups, events from dancing to yoga, even morning coffee meetups just to swap stories about the old days in New York. In the US, sometimes neighbors don't even know each other's names, But in Penang, after just a few weeks, you're already being called by your first name at every gathering. That's real connection, the very thing many retirees back home often lack. As for safety, Penang is as gentle as its laid-back rhythm of life. Violent crime is rare, and the biggest risk is probably eating too much fried food and needing to hit the gym to stay in shape. Natural disasters are minimal, an occasional heavy rain or haze from nearby forest fires, but nothing that will keep you up at night. Malaysia is politically stable, so you can enjoy late evening walks without that constant sense of fear. James and Linda, an American couple in their 60s, once thought they'd retire in Arizona. But after running the numbers, they realized that just health insurance and housing costs in the U.S. would swallow their entire pension. A friend introduced them to Penang, Malaysia, a place where many expats live for half the cost of the U.S. They decided to try a 3-month stay. In Georgetown, they rented a spacious apartment with a pool for just $500 a month. Every day, they had roti canai for breakfast for less than $1, shopped for fresh fish and vegetables at half Walmart prices. Linda was amazed that private hospitals in Penang were spotless, doctors spoke fluent English, and a full health checkup cost only $60, the same as a copay in the U.S. After a few weeks, they joined an expat club, made friends with Canadians, Australians, Brits, and realized they weren't out of place at all. At night, the couple would stroll along Gurney Drive, eating coconut ice cream and laughing. In the U.S., this money would only cover the electric bill. A year later, they sold their house in America and moved permanently to Penang. Here we don't just save money, James shared. We've found peace of mind and a true sense of community. Of course, no paradise is perfect. Penang is hot and humid year-round. Sometimes heavy rains can flood the streets, and if you're someone who loves watching snowfall, then this isn't the place for you. But think about it. Trading gray winters and massive heating bills in the U.S. for golden sunshine and a fresh coconut for just $1. Which choice sounds wiser? Retirement shouldn't be about clipping coupons or stressing over medical bills. It should be the time when you truly live. Waking up to the sound of ocean waves, strolling down historic streets filled with the aroma of street food, visiting a clinic and still having enough left over for a fine dinner. Penang gives you that chance. A one-way ticket to turn old age into the most memorable journey of your life. So what about you? If you had the chance to retire on a vibrant island where the cost is half of the U.S., but the quality feels like double, would you dare to pack your bags and leave Florida or Hawaii for Penang? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear, would you keep running the marathon with bills in America or enjoy life with a $1 coconut on Penang's beach? 4. Ambergris, Caye, Belize, Florida's wild version. If Penang is like an Asian street feast, then Ambergris Caye is a Caribbean cocktail, filled with sunshine, sea salt, and lively music. This largest island of Belize is famous for its powdery white sand beaches, turquoise waters, and the world's second-largest barrier reef, where you can dive down and see what feels like a miniature city under the ocean. The heart of San Pedro feels like a tropical movie. Beach bars with live music, expats sipping mojitos, and tourists dancing salsa until midnight. If in Florida you have to squeeze into expensive resorts, in Ambergris you'll find the vibe of slow living but joyful. That's pure Caribbean. Belize has a very famous residency policy for foreigners over 45 years old, called the Qualified Retired Persons Program, QRP. This program was designed specifically to attract retirees. The requirements are simple. You only need to prove a minimum monthly income of $2,000 from pension, investments, or savings. There's no requirement to live in Belize full-time. You only need to stay at least 30 days a year to maintain residency status. The most attractive part of QRP is the tax benefits. You're exempt from all income taxes earned outside of Belize, and you can import a car, household furniture, and even a boat duty-free. After living here for a few years, many Americans go further, apply for permanent residency, and eventually Belizean citizenship. But don't let the beauty fool you. Living here isn't exactly dirt cheap. According to International Living, a couple needs about $2,900 to $3,000 a month to live comfortably. And that's when renting. If you're lucky enough to own your own home, costs can drop by nearly half. A single person has it easier. Around $500 a month can still work if you budget carefully. Groceries, utilities, and especially tropical air conditioning can make the bills rise quickly. So if you thought you would live like a king on an average pension, remember this. In Ambergris, you'll live like a Caribbean king, but your wallet will thin out faster too. When it comes to healthcare, the island has private clinics and small hospitals, clean, with good doctors, and everyone speaks English. But if you ever need a major surgery, you'll have to fly to Belize City. And that's not exactly a fun trip when you're strapped to a stretcher. That's why most expats buy international insurance, sometimes even with packages that fly them straight back to the US for peace of mind. In other words, Ambergris is ideal for those who are healthy and adventurous. But if you have chronic conditions that require close monitoring, this might not yet be a true paradise. What makes Ambergris easy to live in is the language. Belize is the only officially English-speaking country in Central America, so Americans face almost no communication barriers. Imagine this. Instead of fumbling with Google Translate like in Mexico, here you can order a beer, ask for directions, or see a doctor, completely in your native tongue. The expat community is lively and welcoming, from retired American and Canadian couples to Europeans chasing the sunshine. San Pedro is full of bars, cafes, charity groups, and festivals. It's truly hard to feel lonely when you step outside and everyone is ready to strike up a conversation. What about safety? Ambergris is fairly peaceful, with almost no serious crime, mainly just petty theft. The kind where, if you forget to lock your golf cart, you'll be walking the next morning. Compared to Belize City's reputation, this island is practically a safety oasis. Natural disasters are rare, but if you plan to retire long-term, remember hurricane season runs from June to November. Sometimes, strong winds mean you'll need to keep the shutters closed. In short, Ambergris Caye is a wonderful choice for those who want a tropical retirement filled with sunshine, fun, and entirely in English. The pros? Stunning scenery, a warm expat community, and no need to learn a new language. The cons? The cost is relatively high, and healthcare is more complicated than on the mainland. This isn't a cheap paradise, but it's definitely a paradise for enjoyment. So, if you had an extra $3,000 a month to live in a living postcard on Ambergris, would you choose Caribbean sunshine or keep clinging to the cold bills of the US? Comment your thoughts down below. Like and subscribe so we can continue the journey toward peace of mind. Together. 3. Roatán, Honduras, is the secret Florida of the Caribbean, where Americans find sunshine, the sea, and a dream life without draining their retirement accounts. If Florida makes you sweat over bills, Roatán makes you sweat from diving among coral reefs before heading home to sip a $2 beer on the porch. Honduras has a retiree residency visa. You only need to prove a retirement income of $500 per month from pension or Social Security. The process is relatively simple and much faster than in many other countries in the region. After 5 years, you can apply for permanent residency and then citizenship if you wish. Frank and Linda, a couple from Texas, are living proof. After 40 years of hard work in Houston, they decided to sell their suburban home and fly down to Roatán. Now, instead of the roar of trucks on the highway, they wake up to the sound of waves and tropical birds. Their beachfront apartment costs only about $200, just 1/3 of the property taxes they used to pay in Texas. When I asked Frank if he missed his Starbucks mornings, he laughed. Here I've got Honduran coffee that's 3 times better, for just $1. Who misses Starbucks? Their cost of living, about $2,000 a month, covers food, rent, internet, and even a few scuba dives each week. Linda often says that in the U.S., this amount was barely enough for them to live modestly. But here, it buys a life that feels like a long vacation. Of course, Roatán isn't perfect. The infrastructure sometimes feels like America in the 1970s. Bumpy roads, occasional power outages for a few hours. The island's hospital is fine for minor issues, but serious cases need transfer to the mainland or Costa Rica. Frank and Linda solved this by buying international insurance with medical evacuation back to the U.S. We basically treat it like paying off a plane ticket to peace of mind, Frank joked. Language is another big plus. As a former British colony, most locals speak English. Frank said, on the mainland of Honduras, you need Google Translate. On Roatán, you just need Google Maps to find the bar. And indeed, the expat community here is so lively that every evening they can gather at Sundowners or Java Vine, sharing news, trading living tips, and even forming groups to clean up the beaches. When it comes to safety, Roatán is considered the gentle island in a country often criticized for crime. It's mostly just petty theft, and with a little basic caution, life here feels safer than in many major U.S. cities. Linda once said she felt more comfortable walking at night in West End than she ever did in downtown Houston. In short, Roatán isn't for those who want American-style shiny infrastructure, but it is the perfect piece for anyone seeking a Florida-like life that's wilder, cheaper, and right on the Caribbean. You get coral reefs at your doorstep, an expat community that feels like family, and a slow living rhythm that money rarely buys in the U.S. So here's the question. If you had $2,000 a month, would you choose a tiny apartment in the U.S.? Or would you choose the secret Florida of the Caribbean to turn retirement into the longest vacation of your life? Share everything you want in the comments. Tell me if I've got something wrong, or simply let me know the places you'd love to go. Tucumán. Isla Mujeres, Mexico, is the island of smiles, because everyone who sets foot here feels relieved, peaceful, and always greeted by the friendly smiles of the locals. Just a 30-minute ferry ride from Cancun, and you step into another world. No more noise and crowds of the big tourist city, but instead a slower, friendlier, and more intimate way of life. An American couple, John and Mary, chose Isla Mujeres as their retirement spot after years of grinding work in Chicago. In the U.S., with $2,500 a month, they could barely cover housing, insurance, and a few miscellaneous expenses. But in Isla Mujeres, with the same amount, they live in a beachfront apartment, wake up every morning to the sound of waves, and take leisurely evening walks on soft white sand. In fact, if you just want a simple lifestyle, a single person only needs about $1,000 to live comfortably, a striking difference compared to big U.S. cities. Healthcare here also gave John peace of mind. The island has a new community hospital, enough for regular checkups and basic treatments. Whenever they need more specialized services, it's just a 30-minute ferry ride to Cancun, which has 7 large international standard hospitals. Once, Mary had a stomach checkup that cost only about $15, the same as a lunch in the U.S. Medicines are about 1/3 of the price and easy to get. Of course, for extra security, they still bought international health insurance in case of emergencies. Language is no longer a barrier either. While Spanish is the main language, since this is a tourist island, most people working in services speak basic English. Plus, signs, menus, and directions are bilingual. John still learned a few Spanish phrases to score points with his neighbors, but in reality, he could easily manage daily life using only English. The expat community in Isla Mujeres is small, but very close-knit. Every weekend, they gather at a cafe or beach bar, alongside the snowbirds from Canada and the northern U.S. who come to escape the cold. This intimacy, this lack of overcrowding, made John and Mary feel truly welcomed. So different from the feeling of being lost in some larger expat communities elsewhere. Isla Mujeres is also known for being safe. Crime is hardly a concern, and you can walk along the beach at night without fear. Of course, this is still the Caribbean, so the hurricane season from June to November needs attention. But the preparation in nearby Cancun gives residents peace of mind. What makes this island truly the island of smiles is its balance. Low cost of living, high safety, a friendly community, and convenient healthcare just across the water in Cancun. The only downside? The island is a bit small. Many goods are imported from the mainland, so gas and canned food can cost nearly as much as in the U.S. And yes, sometimes life here may feel a little too familiar too quickly. But for those who want a retirement that is peaceful yet welcoming, Isla Mujeres is the kind of place that lets you grow old while still feeling young. So what do you think? Would you want to spend your retirement on the island of smiles, where every day begins with the sound of waves and a friendly smile? 1. Las Terrenas, Dominican Republic, is the little Paris of the Caribbean. It's a place where you can sip a perfectly frothed French café au lait while listening to the waves crash onto soft white sands. This seaside town is picture-perfect, but it also carries a unique European flavor in the tropics, making anyone who arrives feel both surprised and at home. Hard to believe, but Las Terrenas was once just a remote fishing village. It wasn't until the 1970s that the first French settlers arrived, opening bakeries, Italian restaurants, and small bars. From a sleepy spot on Samana Bay, it slowly transformed into a cultural oasis where you can grab a crisp morning croissant and by afternoon enjoy Caribbean-style grilled fish. Americans and Canadians came later, and today, anyone seeking a retirement with a taste of Paris at Caribbean prices finds it hard to ignore Las Terrenas. The cost of living here? Almost unbelievable. A couple can live comfortably on about $2,500 a month. Imagine this. Instead of spending $3,000 just to struggle with rent for a tiny apartment in New York, you only need $500 in Las Terrenas for a 2-bedroom apartment facing the sea. And the food? A plate of rice at a restaurant is $6. A beer is just $3. Hearing it alone is enough to make your stomach growl. Healthcare here is surprisingly accessible. Las Terrenas has 1 hospital and several private clinics for routine issues. For more complex cases, it's just a 3-hour drive to Santo Domingo or Santiago, where bigger hospitals are located. No, they may not be as advanced as the U.S., But the cost of treatment and medicine is so affordable that many Americans even drop their expensive health insurance back home. Safety is also a big plus. Serious crime is almost non-existent, with only occasional petty theft, usually when you're too busy taking beach photos to notice your bag. As for natural disasters, Caribbean hurricanes are still a factor, but the Samana Bay is often shielded by nature, suffering less damage compared to other islands. Las Terrenas is not a perfect paradise. The internet sometimes flickers. Power outages for a few hours are not uncommon, and the language barrier can make your first days a little challenging. Yet it's precisely these imperfections that create its unique character. A place that is simple, poetic, and friendly, giving your retirement a touch of adventure and a bit of spice. So, if you're looking for a place to fully enjoy turquoise seas and white sands, while sipping on a touch of European style and keeping your wallet light, the little Paris of the Caribbean, Las Terrenas, is exactly where your heart can rest. What do you think? Would your retirement be more exciting if every morning you woke not to honking car horns, but to the smell of fresh French bread and the sound of rolling ocean waves? And those are the 5 paradises that many Americans have never even thought about. Places where you can live leisurely by the sea, spend less but gain more. Peace, health, community, and experiences that money back home could never buy. Perhaps the only regret you'll have is not daring to go sooner. Retirement is not meant for paying bills, but for sitting by the blue ocean, sipping a cup of coffee or a cocktail, and smiling as you realize, I made the right choice. So what about you? If you could leave the U.S. tomorrow, which island would you choose to start your new life? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your answer. And don't forget to hit like if you found this video helpful, and subscribe so you won't miss the next journey. Who knows? The next destination might just be your future home.